Thank you for being here. Gary Burnison is CEO of Korn Ferry, the global search firm. I want to start with a question to you. Your new book, Lead, talks about the importance of introspection, of looking at the mirror, of self-awareness as the building block of leadership. Talk about that.
Well, I think the change begins with the person in the mirror, and it's very difficult to improve an organization if you don't improve yourself. And to do that, you've got to have some self-awareness. I think you've got to have humility. You got to listen, learn, and lead, and it begins with you. I don't think it begins with anybody else.
When you connect with a possible candidate for a position, for leadership in an organization, and they're going to go in for the encounter, the meeting with one of the most or the most senior executive in that company, do you have to understand not just the company, but that executive in the company and what they look for and how they are, and try to model them so that they are congruent?
Yeah, you do, but you don't want to be out of script. I mean, you want it to be natural, and you've got to find that connection, right? That's really what you're looking for, that emotional connection. And you don't want to, make believe. You don't want to play a character. You actually want it to be real. So yes, it is helpful to know something about the person, the culture of the company, because you have to work there. So after you're hired, it's got to be a place that's going to be satisfying to your soul, and so you want it to be real.
But do you coach that executive in the other company, that's the hiring company, the senior CEO or the COO, on a candidate, how to deal with him as well in the interview?
Absolutely. I won't bias them. But I will tell them something about the individual, but I won't go too far because I don't want my biases to be, put on them. I want it to be pretty natural.
How does one coming in from the outside read the culture of the organization? What you talk about a lot is it's about cultural fit, but in terms of determinants of success of the executive. But as an executive making a decision to accept an offer that you've just facilitated, how does that executive figure out whether this culture is right for her?
They need to, you need to walk the halls, and you can get a sense of karma and what it feels like, and if there's a good match. But you've got to talk to others. You've got to talk to people that have left the company, people that still work there, and you just try to triangulate that and get a sense of that culture fit, if it's right for you.
Do you believe in the power of story, narrative, and to be able to express? We've discussed this before. Do you help shape the discussion of that narrative by the candidate so that he or she can express it in the most effective fashion, or you just leave them to their own devices?
Yeah, I like the latter. Again, as human beings, we have such biases. I think it's better to provide a little bit of context and what to expect. There was a Fortune 400 CEO last week that I was having a couple executives go and interview with. And I told them a little bit about this CEO. He's really intense. He's probably not going to talk to you about how the kids' softball team did over the weekend. I gave him a little bit of color, but I didn't go too far because you really want it to be natural. Because at the end of the day, they're going to have to live with each other, and they're going to have to work together. And so you want it to develop.
What are the common denominators among executives that are successful at the helm of companies? What do you look for? What makes them successful?
Curiosity is really important. I think that back to what we talked about, I do believe that first and foremost is self-awareness and humility. Because to lead an organization, you've got to be able to meet people where they are. That organization has probably been successful before you got there. And so you have to meet them where they are, not where you want to take the organization. And so that ability to listen, that ability to be humble, to be self-aware, to ask questions, to have quiet confidence, that's also important. Courage or quiet confidence is going to be certainly one of the factors in the equation as well.
And why is curiosity, or I've heard you use the term learning agility, why is that so important?
Well, that's what we've found in all of our research. This is millions of executives, that's the number one predictor of success. This insatiable appetite to listen to music, to understand what's happening with the Clippers today. But you know, those kinds of things to grow, because you're going to be put in situations that you've never been in before. And so you want to be as broad-based and as broad-minded as you possibly can be.
Do you shape the expectation of the executive, or shape the expectation at all of the candidate? Do you try to find a way to get them to really kind of fit together in the conversation better? Do you coach them at all?
No, not really. You know, you just want to provide kind of a landscape. You know, what does the canvas generally look like? What is this person like? What are his or her interests? Where's the company trying to go? What do you think are the success factors here? That's really all you want to do. But then you want it to evolve. And I really believe that it's not so much the left brain that's going to make the difference here, it's the right brain. And is there that fit between the company and the executive?
But emotional resonance can sometimes happen in a company, an individual in a company, and you know that it's there, but you heard the response of the executive or the response of the company, but you wanted to give it another chance. Are you able to encourage that somebody else meet him, or a wider view of it, or do you just take no immediately for the answer?
Oh no, I will definitely do that, because you know, you can only glean so much out of what, you know, an hour. You know, you're only going to go so far. There's an example right now where we've presented a candidate, a general counsel candidate for a big company, and the CEO was a little unsure, and I'm pushing back very carefully that, you know, he needs to take another look, needs to go to dinner with this person, see him in a different kind of setting, because we are, you know, we're so biased, and we have to, you know, open our eyes. And so, yeah, sometimes we'll do that.
Obviously, as you say in LEAD, the best place to be considered for another executive role is when you're already in an executive role and hold the job. But let's say for whatever reason I am out of a job and I'm being considered, perhaps with Korn Ferry's help, for an alternative appointment. How can I overcome the stigma of, in fact, not having a job at this moment in time? How can I highlight my best points?
Well, first of all, you got to be honest with what happened, because whether people ask you that question or not, they're thinking it in the back of the mind, right? What happened here? Why didn't this work out? Why was this marriage a failure? You know, the divorce rate in the United States now is 50%, so not everything's going to work out. So I think the first thing, particularly when you're interviewing, is you need to be honest about what worked, what didn't work. But you got to network. You know, that's the key. You network, and it's a contact sport. You got to be aggressive. You got to be relentless. And then when you get the opportunity, you need to be open and honest about what you're looking for, and what kind of turns you on, and then what didn't work out at the last place you were at.
Now turn that on its heel. Let's assume you put a candidate up for a position with a very top position in a company, and the person in the company is just enamored. He's met him or her, and it's fantastic, but your candidate has now questions. He's not sure that's right for him, but didn't really like the attitude of the meeting. How do you handle that side of the situation so you don't lose the client who's asking you to look for somebody, and you deliver the process to the young executive, or whoever she is?
Well, you know, listen, sometimes your gut instinct, your first instinct, is the best instinct, right? So you have to recognize that, and you don't want to push water uphill. But we will encourage people to take another look, talk to other people in the organization. But you know, you do have to trust your gut to some extent. And if that feeling is still there after a second meeting, third meeting, then the karma's just not right.
I asked you a question earlier about what the common denominators are among people who succeed in leadership roles. Flip side, why did they fail?
I think for the population that we're talking about, you know, the kind of outliers of achievement, if you will, I do believe that many times the reason is culture fit. It's not that the person wasn't technically sound. It wasn't necessarily that they made bad strategic decisions. Now, there's lots of those, okay? I don't want to say that there's not, because there are. But generally, there just wasn't that fit. Either the executive tried to move the organization faster. You can only move a culture, you can only move an organization as fast as the culture will allow you to absorb itself. I mean, you just can't go from left to right, right to left. You do have to meet people where they are. It's critically important. And so I would say that actually more than 50% of the time it wasn't a good fit.
And that can't be anticipated?
How do you fall in love? How do you fall out of love? You can do your best, but people change. Organizations, grow. You cannot predict that. We try our best to use science, and we'll assess people. We'll have them, take assessments around personality and culture and thinking styles and leadership styles. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with the human emotion.
So is leadership God-given, meaning you have it in you, and therefore you can't put in what God left out, or can it really be learned?
Well, that's an age-old question. I think there has to be something fundamentally there, that you have to love people, that you have to be able to create that connection, as you say. That's very, very important. Can that be taught? I think clearly leaders can be developed. But I think at the base case, you're in the people business. And if you don't like people, probably not a good idea for you.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Gary, for being here. We look forward to our class.
Thank you.